Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. I'm John Dickerson. We begin this morning with former Republican presidential candidate Marco Rubio. We caught up with the senator yesterday in Miami and started with the big news from the UK. In terms of the politics of this, do you see any parallels between the Brexit push and what's happening in American politics?
I think globalization, the kind of move of the economy to this global economy is having an impact in multiple countries around the world. I think the reality that we have a new economy, and the new economy is creating a lot of new jobs, but the people hired for the new jobs are not the same people that are losing jobs under the old economy. In essence, the people losing their jobs are not the ones being hired by the new economy. All of this has created an incredible amount of strain and friction all over the world. And so there's a sense in many countries around the world that this is because we're too engaged with this global economy. We're too engaged with the world. I think you see it manifested here in America. I think you saw it in that vote there. I think there's other places where you may see that pop up as well.
Do you see it manifested in America in the support for Donald Trump?
Sure. I mean, it's one of the fundamental arguments he's made, is that the U.S. Needs to isolate itself a little bit more from some of the other things that are going on around the world and focus on America first. And there are some elements of truth to that argument, but ultimately, again, not entirely, because given the dynamics that we now live in today, we cannot isolate ourselves from global events. We are the United States of America. We're not a small, irrelevant country. We are directly and immediately impacted by global events, whether we want to be or not, whether they're national security ones or economic ones. We're 5% of the world's population. If all we do is sell things to each other, there's only so much growth we can create. We need to be able to engage with economies all over the world.
Do you have any concern about a kind of burn the system down mentality that some people have seen in the Brexit vote and that they see in American politics today? The elites are wrong, the fancy economists are wrong, the members of Congress are wrong. Do you see that?
Well, I think it's good to hold the elites and the fancy economists and the Congress accountable for the decisions they make. And I do not believe it's an illegitimate argument for someone who works in manufacturing to argue, for example, don't do this because it'll cost us jobs at the expense of them going to another country. I don't think that's an illegitimate argument for them to make. I think it challenges policymakers to figure out how it is we can embrace a new economy we cannot avoid. The future cannot be stopped. It's going to happen. Whether we like it or not, automation is going to happen. The nature of the economy is going to continue to change. You couldn't stop the Industrial Revolution. You're not going to be able to stop the 21st century economy, but we have to figure out how to benefit from it, not just be hurt by it.
You said you didn't trust Donald Trump with the nuclear codes. Do you trust Hillary Clinton with the nuclear codes?
You know, I think the argument goes deeper than that when it comes to her, and that is what kind of foreign policy will she pursue and where will it lead us ultimately to make decisions like that, dramatic as the one you've just outlined. This is a person who has generally supported virtually all of the Obama agenda, whether it was the reset with Russia, which has blown up in our face, whether it was the pivot to Asia, which was largely rhetorical, but sent the message to Europe that we were disengaging from them, whether it was the Iran nuclear deal, which I believe will one day come to haunt us, whether it's the release of prisoners from Guantanamo, one of whom was sent to Uruguay and has now left Uruguay, headed to Brazil, and on his way back to Syria. And he's not going back to Syria to open up a chain of car washes. I mean, this is the things she supported.
But do you trust her with the codes?
Well, look, I think there's a process for the presidency, and once you assume the office, no matter who holds that office, I think that the reality and the gravity of it always weighs on these people. It's a very difficult issue to face. So I would hope that I can trust no matter who wins with the nuclear codes, but here's a better approach, and that is ensuring that we have a foreign policy to ensure that we never reach a point where something like that could actually happen, where nuclear weapons would have to be used, which in my mind, it obviously is the worst and most apocalyptic scenario possible.
Let me try it another way. The presidency on national security issues sometimes comes down to one person by themselves in a room alone, no matter how much advice they've gotten. On those tough decisions, whether it's about the nuclear codes or about the other kinds of decisions a single president can make, you think that Donald Trump has better character and judgment in those alone situations than Hillary Clinton?
So that's the challenge Donald has over the next 2-3 months.
But what does Senator Rubio think?
Well, but there's a campaign, so that's what I'm going to watch now. I know Donald is a primary candidate trying to stand out in a field of 17 people. He is now the Republican nominee, and he's going to have the next 3 months to go out and make the argument to the American people and help us envision him as president. And these are the kinds of issues that he's going to have to earn people's trust. That's part of the process for anyone who runs.
I know you want to stay in the legislative, but there was a poll recently that has you as the most popular choice for vice president.
Yeah, well, it's too late for that. I'm running for the United States Senate from Florida, and you can't run for 2 offices at once, so.
even if you were asked to not run for
No,
one?
that's not, for me, a viable option. And I said that months ago. The differences in policies that me and Donald have had are too big for something like that to work. It would be a distraction, quite frankly, to his campaign.